Welcome to Midnight Clues.
With Clara Monroe and Elias Gray.
Imagine this. It's late. You're on a dark Minnesota back road, and your car slides into a ditch. You do what anyone would do. You call your parents for help. But that call, which lasts for 47 agonizing minutes, ends up being the last time anyone ever hears from you. That's exactly what happened to 19-year-old Brandon Swanson. Those were his last words. Just a sudden, chilling exclamation. And then, nothing. The line went dead. It's a mystery that has haunted his family and investigators for over a decade. What on earth could have happened in that final, terrifying second?
So, let's set the scene. It was May 14th, 2008. Brandon Swanson, just 19 years old, was driving home after a party celebrating the end of his first year of college. But somewhere along the way, he took a wrong turn and ended up on a tangled network of rural backroads, which is where his car slid right into a ditch.
Now, you might be thinking, he grew up there, shouldn't he know the roads? But this wasn't just any road. He was on what's called a minimum maintenance road. Basically, it's an unlit, often unpaved gravel track that's really just for farm equipment. In the pitch black, it's incredibly easy to get turned around, even if you're a local. He tried to make a turn, and his car just got hung up on the edge of a ditch. He was completely and totally stuck.
And this is where the story gets really strange. For that entire 47-minute phone call, Brandon was trying to guide his parents to his location. The problem? He had no idea where he actually was. He was telling them he was near a town called Lind, but in reality, he was a full 25 miles away. He thought he was just off Highway 23, he was actually off Highway 68. And those town lights he said he was walking toward, they were just the blinking lights on top of a single, distant grain elevator. So for nearly an hour, his parents are driving around, flashing their lights, honking their horn, and he's doing the same, but they never see each other. He gets frustrated, tells his dad he's leaving the car and walking towards what he thinks is a nearby tavern. He stays on the phone the whole time describing his surroundings, right up until that call just ended. The search started almost immediately. But the first really shocking clue didn't come from a search party on the ground. It came from Brandon's cell phone records.
I mean, can you even imagine being his parents? You've spent hours frantically searching near the town of Lind because that's where your son insisted he was. Then the police ping his cell phone and find his car 25 miles away, in a totally different area. That single discovery changed everything. It showed everyone just how dangerously and profoundly lost Brandon truly was. So investigators brought in a bloodhound. The dog picked up Brandon's scent right at the car and started to follow this winding 3-mile path. It led them past fences, toward the sound of water he'd mentioned on the phone, and the trail went straight to the bank of the Yellow Medicine River. The dog indicated Brandon went into the water, but then, amazingly, it picked up the scent again on the other side. He had made it across. The trail continued for a bit before it just stopped, dead, at a freshly graded gravel road. That 3-mile trail was the single best lead they had, but it's also where the search for Brandon started to hit one wall after another. First off, the sheer scale of the search area was just immense. We're talking 122 square miles of nearly identical-looking farmland. Some places, like an area called Mud Creek, were so overgrown with shoulder-high plants, they were basically impossible to search. And then you have human factors. Some property owners just flat out refused to let searchers on their land. Plus, all the searches had to be timed around the farming seasons, which caused huge delays. With the physical search basically at a dead end, all that was left were theories. How does a person just vanish from an open field? The possibilities run the gamut, from a simple, tragic accident to something far more sinister. Okay, so let's start with the most straightforward theory. This is rural country, filled with old, abandoned farmsteads. What if Brandon, totally disoriented in the dark, just stumbled into a hazard he never even saw coming? The landscape itself is full of hidden dangers out there. You could have an old, unmarked well from a farm that's been gone for decades, or a small sinkhole hidden by tall grass. There are even things like manure pits that can look solid but aren't, or deep trenches dug for farm irrigation. A fall into any one of those would perfectly explain that sudden, oh shit, and why he was never found. But of course, you have to consider the other possibility. What if Brandon wasn't alone out there? What if his final cry wasn't because he fell, but because he saw someone? The thing is, the foul play theories are a lot harder to back up. I mean, could he have been hit by a car? Well, his scent trail did stop at a road, but he never mentioned hearing or seeing a car on that 47-minute call. And since the road had just been graded, any evidence could have been wiped clean. And yeah, the dogs did show some interest in a piece of farm equipment, but he could have just walked past it. The idea that he stumbled on some illegal activity is pure speculation. There's just no proof. So that brings us to the most obvious theory of all. The bloodhound tracked him right to the edge of the Yellow Medicine River. It seems simple, right? It's dark, he's lost, he slips, falls in, and drowns. But here is the one piece of evidence that changes everything. The dog didn't stop at the water. It indicated that Brandon went in and then came out on the other side. The scent trail picked right back up on the opposite bank. So whatever happened to Brandon, it almost certainly did not happen in that river.
So, if he didn't drown, and foul play seems really unlikely, what's left? Well, the most widely accepted scenario combines the unforgiving environment with the simple, brutal limits of the human body.
And it all comes down to this number. It was about 40 degrees Fahrenheit that night. That's around 4 degrees Celsius. Now, that's not freezing, but it's cold enough to be incredibly dangerous, especially if you're wet. Just put yourself in his shoes for a second. He crosses that river, so now his clothes are completely soaked. In 40-degree weather, wet clothes will suck the heat right out of your body at an alarming rate. Hypothermia starts to set in, which makes his already bad disorientation even worse. He probably just kept walking, trying to push through, until exhaustion and exposure just caused his body to give out. And tragically, this theory is backed up by the search dogs. Years after he vanished, specially trained cadaver dogs were brought in, and they repeatedly led searchers to one specific place, that dense, swampy marsh called Mud Creek. It's miles from his car, but right along the path he was walking. The dogs could tell he was there, but the terrain was just too thick to ever find him. As one of the search coordinators put it, time is just the ultimate enemy in a case like this. Scents fade, the landscape changes, seasons come and go. Despite years of relentless effort, the search for Brandon Swanson became a race against time that, sadly, no one could win. Brandon Swanson's story is just this chilling reminder of how fragile we really are. A young man makes one wrong turn on a dark road. He gets lost. He makes one long, desperate phone call for help. And when that call ends, it's as if the vast, empty landscape just swallowed him whole, erasing him from the world without a trace.